Hello everyone and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Lots of very good racing to look forward to this weekend, and to review from the Dante meeting in particular and the Lockinge last week, Steve Ryder is in his usual position, and we've got the old gang back together. Sam Turner is with us today. Sam, how are you? How have you been enjoying the flat season?
I'm good, Rishi, thank you. Yeah, very much enjoy it. I feel like one of those old crooners that comes on from the side with the guitar, you know, when you get the bang back.
Kind of half expected it to be
Well,
honest.
he shouldn't really be playing with you still, should he? But they get him on just for a bit of novelty's sake. But no, great to be back. And yes, Newbury was great the weekend. Really enjoyed that. Was there on Saturday for the mail purposes. And yeah, getting to speak to one or two of the main practitioners was good fun, and we saw some really good performances, I think.
Yeah, I'll come back to you on that. Just wanted to ask you, Steve, about your overall sentiments for the last week of racing. I think it's been really enjoyable. Some people are being a bit down about the flat season, but I love the way it's building up so far.
Yeah, we're in the era of the Derby and Oaks trial, so it's trying to spot which trial you think is going to have the strongest form going into those Epsom Classics. You're having Royal Ascot clues left, right and centre as well. I particularly enjoyed our day at Newmarket on Saturday together, Rish, and we might well have a filly that could be be heading to the Albany Stakes from there.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about Jolivet a little bit later on in the show. But Sam, have you got a horse for us for the flat season ahead? One that you've seen already? One that's one that you've seen already.
Well, I've got a couple.
Okay, great.
One that's a bit recency biased because it ran at Windsor on Monday night, but one called Terrio that Jim and Susie Best train. Was a bit unlucky at Bath first time out. They had a big price, 33 to 1. Got hampered, probably would have been placed if he hadn't got hampered on that rail. And then ran at Windsor and found some similar traffic problems. So that's 2 runs now, only a 2-year-old. Relate to Party Tiger, Rishi used to train.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him make his mark in some nurseries.
Okay.
And the other one I like is Evanesco, the Ammo racing horse that I think rounded off the Guineas Festival with that victory. Beat Sahara King, Prince?
Yeah. Sahara King, who was...
Sahara King, who was second in the London Gold Cup. Was a touch unlucky, perhaps, not to get it in the steward's room. But,
yes, he was.
What were you backed it, did you?
He was watching it. I have a curse when it comes to Sean Levy riding in those colours.
Right,
It's the Rosalian effect in full force.
I'm not sure he really wanted to go by, did he? I think with a pair of cheek pieces or something, I think he probably would have won. I think Sean's equally annoyed as well because he rides quite a lot for David Minucier, doesn't he? And seems to get beat by him regularly. So, yeah, I thought Evanesco, the way that he strode clear, I know that Newmarket favoured those horses off the front, and it was, you know, speed favouring that weekend a little bit, but really take with him. I thought the Golden Gates, maybe Goodwood, he's been second at Goodwood, I think, in his maiden. Those races would definitely come into his remit this year. Okay,
and the Charlie Johnson horses going well.
Yeah, especially for Ammo as well. Well, you know, Kevin Philippart de Foy is starting to fire as well with some nice 2-year-olds and older horses, but Charlie, obviously, has got a really big season for Ammo as well.
All right, well, there's lots of good racing to reflect on, so let's get into this week's racing recap. And we start at Newbury with the Lockinge Stakes, and I think it's fair to say that it was a dominant performance from Notable Speech in the manner of the success more than anything else.
Yeah, terrific performance. The money came for him as well. The 2 winners the day before perhaps increased a bit of confidence in the stable, the 2 Newmarket winners of Charlie Appleby. And he sort of stood there afterwards and told the press throng that were listening that he was never worried. This horse was 110% and he always thought he'd win. But until you see it happen before your very eyes, I think it's understandable to be a little bit concerned about how the yard were running. And that sort of line that, they're finding their level, I don't know if that was strictly true, because there were 1 or 2 horses, particularly the Lingfield Derby trial, for instance, that never showed, were never competitive. So to see, you know, Notable Speech go and put a dominant performance in like that was terrific. That was a big performance from More Thunder as well to come from where he did to finish second. I think the Queen Anne will really suit him. Obviously, he should have won the Wokingham last year, but for a sluggish start, and that's his Achilles heel, isn't it, really? But over the mile at Ascot, with probably the likelihood of a strong pace, that should be ideal for More Thunder, and I could see him certainly narrowing the gap.
Yeah. On the Friday morning, anybody looking at backing a Charlie Appleby horse would have been a bit perturbed by the form to that point.
Yeah, had a couple of winners on the Friday, a couple of winners before Notable Speech, then went in at Newmarket, and it was just a really good performance. Up now to a career high mark of 125 this morning, up £3, and watching him, you can see why they tried him in a July Cup last year, can't you? I even looked at stride data. He had the shortest stride in the field, and you just have to ride him for that one burst of a turn of foot. And that's what sometimes on that straight course at Ascot might work against him. If you're now going into, I think he's 2-1 favourite now with Bet365 for the Queen Anne. He's been there twice. He was beaten in the St James's Palace Stakes, and he was beaten in the Queen Anne last year. And I just think his run is dependent on who he's tracking, and he needs to try and get pulled into that race as far as possible. But I'm with Sam. It wouldn't surprise me if More Thunder got a lot closer to him. He had the best finishing speed percentage of the whole race, was just caught slightly too far back. And that straight course at Ascot should definitely suit him.
Yeah, More Thunder 7-1.
Yeah, just the one point I'd make about Steve, saying about the stride cadence and that, 2.45 for notable speech, which is the cadence really for sprinter.
Yeah.
So as you say, you can understand why they went for a July Cup, whereas More Thunder's 2.27, which is very much more a miler stretching out.
Mile and a quarter, according to...
Well, yeah, but you listen to Tom Marquand and he couldn't win over the mile on Saturday, but all he's done is really gallop through the line strongly. As Steve says, the finishing speed percentage was very good, and I think where you can play your hand late at Ascot, if you're a strong stayer at the mile. The one issue I had a little bit with Charlie Appleby on Saturday was that he was suggesting in the Queen Anne, if you go back and watch it, that William was going sideways as much as he was going forward. Yeah. Well, he did that on Saturday. Newbury, he went sideways, came out, and then quickened. Yeah. I just think that track suited him a lot better. Now, whether he's a better horse now than he was 12 months ago, that's conceivable. But it's not as if he was rubbish as a 3-year-old, was it? He won a Guineas, won a Sussex Stakes.
They obviously got the reappearance run in this time as well, went over to America, didn't they? Yeah. I know it didn't really happen for him. He finished 4th. He was unlucky that day, probably should have won in theory. But just that benefit of that extra run coming into the race, and maybe that will mean that he can run a bit better in the Queen Anne as well. But it's going to be interesting to see who William Buick rides, because apparently both Notable Speech and Opera Ballo are both going to go for this. Obviously, Opera Ballo will be suited by slower ground, and Notable Speech will want it as fast as possible. But
I don't think he'll get off this fella, will he?
No, I mean, he's ridden him in all 16 of his starts.
Five Group 1 wins.
And I was lucky, I actually bumped into Charlie Appleby after all the dust had settled a bit, and I said, how does he sort of compare with modern games? And he said, he'd definitely be more explosive. Yeah. So he said he's right up there as the best miler I've trained. So
he's trained, extraordinary. He has trained some very good ones in a relatively short space of time. And Notable Speech, 2-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Queen Anne. Opera Ballo 6-1. Zeus Olympios 6-1. Carl Burt was still very positive about his run, wasn't he?
I thought Stall 1 was his Achilles heel, really. I think if he'd been drawn anywhere better than that, that was my worry going into the race. And I'm not saying it really affected his performance, but it's not ideal, is it?
Demesis back up in trip, maybe?
Possibly.
It's just flat, apparently. After the race, they just felt that he was just flat and didn't run his race. I thought Cicero's Gift ran all right, to a point.
Dancing Gemini stayed on nicely.
Yeah, ran really well. They'd be pleased to get him back to that sort of level of performance. Speed figure very good, as you would imagine, and really good race.
He's going up in trip, Dancing Gemini, according to Roger Teal. OK, let's head back and talk about the Dante meeting and the race that the meeting is named after. Was won by Item, who is now 5-1 for the Derby with Bet365. How taken were you with that performance, Steve?
I was impressed with it. It's the whole meeting at York was slightly, I suppose, hindered by the fact that there might have been that bias towards that far side. And if you watch the race back, the 1-2 himself and Action were both drawn closest or raced closest to that far side rail. Whether that's affected the result, it is a question. I thought Action ran much better than last time at Sandown, when apparently didn't face a first time tongue tie. I think the way that he ran is probably submitted himself as the pacemaker for the Derby, I imagine, for Benvenuto Cellini. Item was impressive. 2 low-key wins last year, I suppose, at Kempton and at Bath. I suppose the one thing that you need to look at anti-post purposes for him is that they did pull him out on heavy ground in the Futurity Trophy at the end of last season. So maybe they are going to try and kick on this better ground, in the thought that maybe he won't handle that heavier ground towards the end of the season with an autumn campaign. But yeah, amazingly up £24 this morning, up to a mark of 117. So they've given away some handicap opportunities, but they've got a live Derby contender.
I shouldn't think Juddmonte are losing too much sleep over that, are they? I thought it was a little bit harsh, actually, after the race, that there wasn't a little bit more love for Item. I don't know whether that's his name or whether he'd won at Bath, and there's that sort of, people pouring scorn on the level of form, but we've seen horses come through the all-weather route, quite consistently into classics. We've just talked about one, and I was quite taken with the performance. I wish everything had perhaps lined up and come down in an arrowhead formation down the Knavesmire, and then we could have not had the excuse that he was on a better strip of ground. I'm not necessarily buying that for the performances for those that were on the left-hand side as we watched them, the Christmas days of this world. I think if he hadn't won at Bath, if say he'd gone into the winter and just off the back of a Kempton performance and had been a 10 or 12 to 1 chance, I think he'd be vying for favouritism almost. He's won the Dante Stakes, which is a long-running Derby trial and one of the best of.
In mitigation for a little bit of cold water on Item, I'd say if you look at Aidan O'Brien's contenders for the race, Action, yes, he's beaten Action and Christmas Day comfortably, but at no point has anyone really been talking about Action, kind of maybe they've said about him. But Christmas Day and Action as a pair for the Derby, how far behind Benvenuto Cellini would they be?
Well, yeah, I think they were behind Benvenuto Cellini and Pierre Bonnard.
And Pierre Bonnard.
Listening to how he spoke.
And certainly Constitution River.
Yes, yeah, who's a star in waiting, isn't he? But they didn't back Action at Sandown as if he was just an also-ran, did he? He went off 4 to 6 to win a recognised Derby trial and one featuring one or two very nice horses. So he'd obviously been doing some fairly decent work in the spring, and they were pretty confident that he was going to run a big race there. He didn't, fluffed his lines, but I think it's a solid. I think it's a solid run. I think he certainly deserves to be second or third favourite. Trip, I think he'll get it. His dosage index suggests he'll get it. Stride cadence, all those.
So is he your Derby horse?
No.
Okay.
No, but I just thought he was a little bit damned, for winning at Bath, and I think people thought, well, he can't be any good. He's taken him to Bath, but you learn a fair bit around Bath. You're uphill, down dale, and he's obviously a very well balanced colt. So I think show him a little bit of love.
This is the first time I've ever heard Bath used as a warm up for the Derby. But,
well, this is it.
In terms of the configuration of the course,
This is it. I mean, I didn't see him in the flesh, so that's something that perhaps other people can.
He's not as big an individual as some of the other Derby contenders you've seen in the flesh. I've seen Benvenuto Cellini in the flesh, and he's a
knockout,
strong, good-looking, handsome horse. Item's a bit lighter framed than a few others. What would be your Derby horse at the moment, Steve? Or are you sold on your Derby horses now?
No, I mean, it would be Constitution River. I'm just hoping that they change their minds, but I do think he's going to head to France. I think he is the most talented 3-year-old colt.
So would you back him at 6 to 1?
No.
Okay.
So I made a case, obviously, for Stard back in the season, the fact that his price was wrong based on the fact that people didn't think he was going to run. In the end, he did, and 16 to 1 was a good bet at that stage. But I'd want bigger than 6 to 1 to risk that, because where I had it sort of 50-50 whether Stard would run, I've got it about 10% and 90% that he's going to head to France.
Fair enough.
And what would you have favourite in the Derby if they both ran? And Ryan was riding Constitution River, would you?
Yeah.
Really? Just like,
if Ryan was riding Constitution River in the Derby, then
he'd
go off, I think, pretty sure. I reckon he'd go off 6 to 4.
I think Aidan's got misgivings about him getting the trip.
Maybe. You might be absolutely right.
I think he's
What is your Derby horse at the moment?
Benvenuto Cellini.
Yeah.
I watched it back again yesterday, and I know it looked impressive at the time, but even more so when I look at it in the cold light of day, and having seen him in the flesh at Ballydor last week as well, he's and Constitution River, to be fair, and Jan Bruegel and Albert Einstein and True Love, they look absolute knockout, and you can't help but get really taken by them. But Benvenuto Cellini was a fantastic looking model.
Okay, we could talk about the Derby.
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned Paul Maltese Cross, who's, I think, got a decent shot. I think he's a very good horse. Will stay. And lies a battle.
It's funny, that Newbury race, isn't it? Because it was a good time and there were good horses involved, but they all finished within a length of each other, didn't they? So I don't know what to make of it, really. But it's working out quite well with one or two horses coming out and running big races.
The Oaks Trial was the Musadora, won by Legacy Link, who I must admit I wasn't that taken by.
You've gone very anti-Judmont, haven't you?
So I love Judmont. I wasn't taken by her to see her second favourite 9 to 2 for the Oaks behind Amelia Earhart.
But what else would you have in front of her?
Well, then when you start going... Well, personally, I think Venetian Lace has been underestimated. I think she's the next best behind Amelia Earhart for the Oaks, now that I'm the one's not running in it. So that's my horse, Venetian Lace. And I think, placed in a Fillies Mile and placed in a Guineas is good enough for a horse bred to stay. But Legacy Link, though, let's deal with the Musadora winner. How impressed were you by just what you saw at York?
Very impressed. Yeah, very impressed. Yeah, I mean, I'm not championing the Juddmonte crew, but I thought that was... I'm a bit cold on Amelia Earhart, if I'm honest, because the numbers and the data wasn't anything that special at Chester.
Okay.
She's described as kinky and quirky. I thought he was describing a girlfriend of mine from the 90s, to be honest, but it was Amelia Earhart was not anything special on the clock at Chester, and I have misgivings about her temperament, and obviously they've tried... Everybody was pouring scorn on this headgear combination. He said, but last week, Aidan said, we tried absolutely every combination possible, and this is the one that worked. So we stuck with it, and it did work.
Yeah.
She was very impressive. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a sort of a left field entry from Precise and sneaks away into it with a big run this weekend, because he is looking at bouncing out of the Irish Guineas into the Oaks with her. She's 16-1, I think, with Bet365. That could be a bit of an angle in. But I thought Legacy Link performed very creditably in the Musadora. I thought Felicitas brought a good level of form. She battled and went past her and, rallied when she was threatened, and was well on top of the line. So I thought it was a good effort.
Okay. Impressed or not impressed, or sort of...
I was.
Halfway.
I think she'll step forward from the run. She was the one making her reappearance, wasn't she? 215 days off the track. Felicitas, I thought, came to make her challenge, and I'd question trip for her. I definitely wouldn't be going up in trip with Felicitas. Maybe even drop back down to a mile before the end of the year. But yeah, the fact that she'd be able to concede race fitness to Felicitas, I was quite taken with it. If you look at her breeding, further step up in trip should probably suit based on that. The Grand Dame is Kind, who obviously produced Frankel and most notably Noble Mission and Bullet Train when looking stamina-wise. I've got no idea what Frankel actually would have been best over. I think he probably could have won a July Cup and a Derby. He was that good. But if you look back at the Fillies Mile, that obviously worked out well. She finished 4th in that. The winner, obviously Precise, ran okay in the 1,000 Guineas. The second and the third finished 3rd and 2nd in the 1,000 Guineas at Newmarket. After that, Precise obviously didn't have the ideal preparation. But yeah, I thought Legacy Link was solid, but it just, again, depends on what Aidan's going to run, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we've got 3 levels for Legacy Link. No, solid.
You'd be an absolute no, would you?
I don't see her. I
Don't
can't
you?
see her winning the Oaks. She doesn't look like she acts. She's got a choppy action to me.
Right.
Don't think she'd act around Epsom. I'll be look like a fool when she bolts up. And she only, for the way I saw the race, Felicitas has come there, didn't stay. Kieran Schumacher said that afterwards, and made her pull out all the stops. Now, she was keen and a little bit fresh early on, and that would have taken a little bit of the sting out of it. But it didn't scream to me that we've seen.
So you're more Que Sera? I mean, whatever it'll be.
Yeah, well, Que Sera I thought ran a fine race, but she goes for Ribblesdale, and that's probably her level, I think, for now. So, that's...
I think it's the weaker of the 2 races, for sure.
Yeah. What's your Oaks winner, by the way?
I like Precise. Sam stolen my angle.
Yeah.
She reminds me of Late Victoria. Step forward, a bit of an interrupted prep on the way into the Newmarket Guineas. Step forward from that. I think Minding went from the 1,000 Guineas to the Irish 1,000 Guineas. She got beaten in that, didn't she, by one at a big price, Jet something. And then she went on to win the Oaks straight afterwards.
It wasn't the Keatley horse, was it?
Yeah.
Jet Setting?
That's the one.
Yeah. I think you'd watch the Precise run again.
Yeah.
I think ITV showed the reverse angle where Precise was on the near side, and you watch how close she is to the front, and then she visibly just goes, like me trying to run a kilometre these days. And I think it was very much a stepping stone, and they knew that, didn't they?
Yeah.
They just ran her, and that was a prep
I
run.
don't know why I laughed at you saying about you running for a kilometre, because I'm so tired walking from the train station here. Okay, let's move on and talk about some of the older horses. See the Fire winning the Middleton. Probably underestimated. The fact that she's repeated her win in the Middleton, which is a unique achievement. She's heading for the Prince of Wales is next. Were you 16 to 1. Are you interested in that?
No, if I'm honest, I thought she had to work harder than I was expecting. She was £8 clear of red letter on ratings in this. I mean, York's obviously the track for her, isn't she? She's won 3 of her 4 starts there. The only defeat was behind Ombudsman last year. She's bred to like York, see the stars out of Arabian Queen, obviously, but off the back of a really impressive win in this last year, she could only finish 3rd in the Prince of Wales Stakes. And looking at the field this year in comparison, this is going to be one of the strongest races of the whole week, isn't it? With the likes of Mini Hawk, Ombudsman, Darries.
Yeah, maybe Kalpana if it's softer.
It would surprise me if she was good enough to hit the frame, but a really good horse. But
I thought she did really well to win, because obviously she was keen, she'd won a bit more of a gallop, but I thought there was a couple of horses in there that were just clearly getting prepped for other races down the line. I think it was a weak renewal.
Yeah. Fallen Angel obviously went up in, I think it was the second run, I think it was, over a mile and a quarter. But I'm looking forward to seeing her going back to a mile. The Yorkshire Cup. Now, Rahib beat Al Nayer. There was obviously one disappointment in the race in Amalok, who did a lot early on. But
yeah, that was some gamble, that was, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? What price did he start? He's very short in the end.
4 to 7 it touched at one point. And having seen him at Goodwood, I think last year in the was it the Cocktail? Was it?
Yeah.
Where he dropped out the stalls and gave away 6 or 8 lengths under Richard Kingscote and didn't really want to race. I thought there were brave people who were taking 4 to 7 about him, and obviously he's made the running at York, didn't really seem to suit. A few of Rave's horses, 3-year-olds and upwards, have needed the run. 1 or 2 have won, but a few of them are building on what they've done first time back. So you don't want to sound a clever whatever after the race, do you? But you did think at the time, this is incredibly short.
I still won't give up on Amalok. I think he's going to have a good season at some point.
Mile and a half or further?
Yeah, I think a mile and a half. Probably you go back to the Irish Ledger.
Yeah,
that's. But I thought Rahib on his own though he was very impressive, because I think he's one with a bit in hand. Ray Dawson didn't have to get that serious with him until very late. He's really strengthened up. He's a strong, bullish individual. Apparently he's a right nightmare at home, and Tony Proctor has to do a lot of work in keeping a lid on him. Is 6 to 1 Bet365 for the Gold Cup? Are you interested in that?
It's just interesting to see what contenders you're going to have for the race, really. I thought he was slightly unlucky in last year's St Ledger behind Scandinavia, watching that back. But this was a bit of a crawl and sprint, isn't it? Looking at the sectionals, closing sectionals of 11.4, 11.86 and 12.152. A finished speed percentage of 109. It was there to suit him and make him look impressive. The handicap has only raised him £1 to 116, and even though he looks as if he's going to stay in this trip and staying 2.5 miles in a Ascot Gold Cup is a lot different. And yeah, I'm still not completely sure that a test of a Gold Cup is for him.
This is probably going to sound ridiculous, but I'm a bit the same, that him winning in the manner he did in the slowly run race or with a strong finishing speed percentage would lessen my fancy for him in a Gold Cup. Yeah. He looks like last year he looked a grinder, didn't he, as a 3-year-old. He was only getting going at the end of the St Ledger. He was, a bit of a law unto himself a little bit, but he's grown up a lot. Physically, he's probably matured, and he looks as though he's got quicker.
Yeah.
Because he was the last one off the bridle, wasn't he? And I just wonder over 2.5 whether that's going to, you've got the likes of Scandinavia, who was probably about 50 or 60% fit, wasn't he, the other day, winning the Saddlebeg. Trawlerman.
Those other races later on in the year, like the Goodwood Cups and the Yorkshire, like those sort of ones, I'm definitely going to be within reach, but it's just that 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit cold on that.
Not as a horse, but just for that
Gold
race,
Cup. But as a horse, very exciting, Rahib. And the last one that we'd definitely focus on was the Minster Stakes, which was won by El Monjed. Ed Quigley tipped him up last week, and El Monjed beat Kinda Blue, who, as he so often does, travel beautifully into the right. So often does now, he's back to form.
Does Ed do the draw at York then? Is that how he found El Monjed? Pretty much. He gave himself stall 1. It was ideal, wasn't it, really? Good performance, good Naysmar horse. I think I'd rather back the second in the Jubilee. I think Bet365 at 20 to 1, Kinda Blue. Plenty of Ascot form. Yeah. I think the track might suit him a bit better, and I thought that was a much more rounded performance from him, especially first time out with the Fanshaws, are bound to have left that as a stepping stone into Ascot.
I'm with you on that 100%. Kind of blue for the QE2 Jubilee at Royal Ascot, 20-1 as Sam says. What are your thoughts on that race?
Exactly the same. You've got one York horse and you've got one Ascot horse, really, haven't you? Elmon Jed, saves his best for York. I'd now won his previous 4 starts at York. I was trying to think of other group races at York for him later on in the season. Obviously, the Nunthorpe was going to be over 2 short. The only other one that I've found, obviously, the Criterion is now over 7 at York, and he didn't look as if he was going to be stopping. I think he's ran once over 7 furlongs in his career, but I thought that would probably be a logical next step for Elmon.
He's got a couple for that, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he'd obviously have a penalty here in that race. But just a horse that's so good at York. I was then trying to think of group races that he could actually run in later on in the season.
I did jokingly say Mr. Haggis can campaign for Royal Ascot to be back at York like it was 21 years ago. Just for Elmon Jed. Incidentally, he also mentioned about Almarac, who obviously fell in that listed race at the back end of last season, which Elmon Jed won. I think he mentioned that Almarac might be running this weekend, Salisbury or Curragh for the Greenland. So
brilliant. And how far is Jim Crowley back off?
I don't know. Jim Crowley, obviously Trevor Whelan involved in that horrible fall. Not sure. Jim's sort of original plan was to come back earlier in the season. It's been delayed. I think he had something.
Same with Trevor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Long process for him, unfortunately. It was a horrific fall.
But fingers crossed for both of them that we'll see them again in the saddle before long. Lots of other good performances. I mean, I'm going to open the floor up to you, Sam. You've got a couple of minutes on what else you want to say from the last week or so.
A big fan of Lilt in the Michael C. We touched a little bit on her.
100%.
Marla Quarter, Pretty Polly Island.
Yeah.
Looks a good...
Prefer that than going for the Coronation?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she's got that latent speed for the round mile at Ascot, but I think a Marla Quarter, long wind-up, that'll be absolutely ideal for her. I thought she did really well to win. I thought it was quite a strong renewal of that race. Yeah. Fortune's matched on the runner-up, who I think with a slightly more patient and conservative ride might have won that race.
She's enormously talented as well.
Yeah.
I mean, both those horses, their pedigrees are outstanding. Both out of dams that won the Breeders' Cup. Villiers Mare Turf, Dank and Queen's Trust for the greatest train of all time. Sorry, I cut in across your other horses to mention. Just Lil?
I think Kalpana as well. I got the speed figure absolutely off the scale for that performance at Newbury in the Aston Park. I didn't expect to get anything special because the two of them have pulled clear, but maybe there was some watering that didn't make it all the way to the mile and a half start, and those 2 furlongs. But she was, a great deal quicker than the London Gold Cup, which is usually a good barometer. A lot quicker than Esner as well. So you'd expect that really from a filly that's been very well campaigned. But I think Prince of Wales is mile and a quarter if there's some cut in the ground. The Hardwick mile and a half if it's decent ground.
Yeah. Okay. I'm all over Lilt, so can't wait to see what she does. Yeah, and obviously, with that pedigree, I hope that she does go up in trip. What about you, Steve, from the last week?
Yeah, there's a few I'll touch on. Class Leader, I was really impressed with what he did. He's all stamina, isn't he? Longest stride length in the field, best finishing speed percentage of 106%, reversed that form from Haydock last year with Sing Us a Song, appears to have grown into his big frame. Obviously, he wasn't there, but even on the TV, you thought, wow, you're a really imposing individual. He's up 8 to 98. You'd imagine the Ebor is going to be the next big target for him.
If he doesn't get off to Oz.
Yeah.
I was impressed with Jack Ajaro. Defied the draw/track bias at York. Was really impressive. Just seems to have really grown up with his 2 runs so far this year. They tried to hold him up last year. Never really raced properly, but under Jamie Spencer on his 2 starts this year, Maydall was really impressive. We might well see him in the Temple Stakes this weekend. Jolly Vet won a strong fillies novice race at Newmarket when we were there. Previously won by Cachet and Morge, so has a good roll of honour. She's a Jabmont 2-year-old who's a half sister to Jonquil, who obviously won at 2. The Dam race won twice at 2, so she looks worth her quote of 12-1 for the Albany Stakes as well. Limestone won the listed Yates Stakes over in Ireland, heads to the Queen's Vase. That was a race that Karma's won last year before winning the Queen's Vase as well, so that race has a bit of history. Scandinavia won the Saddlebeg, and this is obviously the Aidan O'Brien tried and trusted route through to the Ascot Gold Cup. If you look back, Yates won it in 2007 before Glory there. Fame and Glory won it in 2011, Order of St George 2016, and Kyprios in 2022 and 2024. So Scandinavia, even though he wasn't that impressive, you just know that Aidan O'Brien is going to have him gradually progressing through his runs. And yeah, I would have him a banker for Royal Ascot at the moment.
Okay. Can I ask you both about another Aidan O'Brien horse? Because obviously Aidan O'Brien very often gets it right with most of his horses. He has told us that Albert Einstein is an absolute rocket, and they've never had anything. Now, we've never had anything go up the gallops like this horse, etc.
As a 2-year-old.
As a 2-year-old. But still believes that it's all there. He has repeatedly said, this horse has still got it there. We're yet to really see it on the track. Better, good run at Newbury.
I think his analogy was last week at Ballydor was that he's a horse that we were scared to look under the bonnet, and we haven't even got anywhere near the bonnet yet. He said because once we do look under the bonnet, we're not sure what we're going to find, and it's just going to light him up. They spent the spring and early part of the year training him to be a miler, getting him to drop his head, and trying to make him into something that he isn't. And now that Saturday performance in the listed race was another stepping stone, perhaps, to the Commonwealth Cup. But like you, his performances aren't as explosive as I thought he'd win Saturday. I think that was a real D-Day for him, really, in a lot of respects, because we've heard all the talk and the hype. I mean, you see him in the flesh; he's a fantastic-looking beast. He really is a gorgeous-looking animal. And you know, Aidan's words were that we thought the rest of our 2-year-olds were rubbish because this horse was so far clear of all of last year's 2-year-olds that we thought they were rubbish. Well, he qualified that a little bit by saying ordinary afterwards, but obviously with those other 2-year-olds coming out and performing highly creditably, like True Love, etc., then he had to readjust what his view was of Albert Einstein a little bit, but the faith still seems to be there. Now, he wasn't supposed to run in that race Saturday, was he? He was going to go to the Sandy Lanes. That was the idea. He was going to run him and Brussels, and then I was quite surprised to see him decked up and running. Maybe he wants to give him another week before Ascot.
The thing that strikes me is that most of Aidan's horses that he rates very highly, he's got a clear, defined plan for, and it's very rare for a horse that he rates that highly that hasn't come up unexpectedly through the ranks, like say a Paddington, for example, who rises and catches them out a little bit, that a horse like him will go into Royal Ascot on his 4th start of the season without really lighting up the season just yet. But here we've got a horse that's got beaten in Ireland on his comeback, beaten in the Greenham, ran okay. Better, I thought, at Newbury again, behind Song of the Clyde. So, do you still believe that? Do you still believe, Aidan, that this is still something special?
I think he's a horse with loads of ability, but you have to question his attitude and a finish at the minute would be the thing for me, because he travelled into it like he was going to win half the track 2 furlongs out, and then just, in my head, got worried out of it. And you can't... I'd either put that down to race fitness, which you can't, because he'd already had a couple of runs, wind, don't know, or attitude. I wouldn't want... He's always going to go off a short price because of this hype behind him, and he wasn't the sort of horse that I'd want to be riding him behind.
Okay.
No.
No,
I gave him not one last chance on Saturday, but I did think that there was enough in that Greenham performance. He'd been to Newbury, they took the hood off. I thought we'd see a little bit more explosiveness on Saturday, and I just thought it was a bit of a beige performance, really, wasn't it?
A furlong and a half out, I thought, oh, here we go,
Yeah,
this is it.
yeah, snap.
And then nothing quite.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the...
Yeah. He's 10-1 for the Commonwealth Cup with Bet365. Venetian Sun's 8. Charles Darwin, who was also disappointing on the weekend, he's 10-1, same price as Albert Einstein. Havana Anna, who won on the weekend, is 10-1. Obviously, True Love's in there as well at 10s, Koppel 14s, and Wise Approach.
Bit of a shake-up, obviously, with the Sandy Lane coming, which we'll touch on. But yeah, Mission Central.
Can't run in it because he's a gelding.
Gelding.
This is one of the niche things around it. I was moaning when it made his comeback, because as a gelding he can't run in the Commonwealth Cup, and as a 3-year-old he can't run in the Jubilee. So he has to run
in the King Charles.
Which is fine, but I just thought it was a bit of a niche thing with obviously the Commonwealth Cup now coming in and being restricted to colts and fillies.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's enough on Aidan O'Brien's Albert Einstein. I'm sure we'll hear more about him But
It's
yeah,
all relative.
so good, so good. And that has summed up this week's racing recap. Now, before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds, and full T's and C's can be found on the website. We are going to look ahead to another classic weekend, but this time in Ireland at the Curragh. And first of all, the Irish 2,000 Guineas. Now, I don't think I've got prices available on my fingertips, but it does appear that Stad is heading there, and he's going to start a short price favourite for this race. Maybe a couple of the horses that ran behind him at Newmarket are set to line up, the likes of Distant Storm, The Secret Adversary, etc. Views on whether it's worth opposing Stad, and is there anything worth opposing with?
I think it's very difficult, to be honest. They stretched so far clear at Newmarket. They were in a different county, the front two. The speed figure suggested that it was an above-average renewal of the race. I think he was beaten by a very talented horse that was trained to the absolute minute, and I'm not sure Stad was, particularly. I think it's been a stepping stone in recent years for the stable to use. I'm not saying they used the Guineas as a prep, but they did with Precise, and
yeah,
you know, I think Stad was going to improve off the back of it, because a lot of Aiden's 3-year-olds were improving for their first run.
You could say that they used it as a prep for Auguste Rodin and the City of Troy, who obviously blew out there and then turned it around.
It's a starting point, isn't it?
Yeah. Stad worth opposing or not?
Yeah, you often look at races with this sort of makeup, and you try and take on a short price favourite or find an each way alternative that you'll find a danger. But I don't want to be opposing Stad in this. I just think he's rock solid. He's yet to finish out the top two in his career. He obviously finished runner-up in 3 Group 1s before winning at the Breeders' Cup last year. And like Sam says, take Bo Echo out of the race. He's just won a 2,000 Guineas by 8 lengths. And I thought Bo Echo had a clearer run through the race than what Stad did. He had to make most of his own running, did most of it by himself on that part of the track, whereas Bo Echo got a lovely lead into the race and could race properly through the race at that stage. I was looking at Al Parsland as trying to make a case for him. He was a non-runner, obviously, in the 2,000 Guineas at Newmarket, but the form of that Greenham hasn't worked out quite as well as I thought it would at the time. Obviously, Albert Einstein's been beaten again since. Needlematch didn't really perform in the 2,000 Guineas either, so I couldn't really find one that I wanted to have an each-way bet on, so starred in a couple of doubles, I think.
The ground is something just to bear in mind, because obviously there's been rain.
Yes.
There's still a bit of rain forecast. We're obviously recording early part of the week. A bit more rain forecast to the middle of the week before the weather brightens up at the end of the week.
Yeah, it gets very warm.
So it's sort of like what's going to happen with the ground. But
and Al Parsland probably would want a bit of cut in the ground, wouldn't it? But then he's got to answer whether a stiff mile at the Curragh
with a bit of cut in the ground.
A cut in the ground is optimum conditions. It's definitely worth rolling the dice with him. But I think Stad, you know, those 2-year-old performances he was putting together and the speed figures he was doing suggested he was always going to make a very good 3-year-old, and I think that is the case.
I think a case can be made for Distant Storm and the Secret Adversary getting closer. Obviously, Charlie Appleby's horses were out of form at the time, relatively out of form at the time of the running of the 2,000 Guineas at Newmarket, and he ran okay. The Secret Adversary pulled like a train through the early part of it. I thought he ran a cracking race.
He did.
He's enormously talented. And there's one other horse that is in the mix. I don't know if he's going to run in it, but it's a way left field thing. And there's a horse called Go Just Do It of Joseph O'Brien's. I don't know if anyone's watched him run yet. He only broke his maiden at the start of this season, but he finished 4th, beaten by New Zealand on his first start, and then on his second start, he ran 3rd behind Constitution River in the Futurity. There was a point in the race where he looked really smart. He was on the bridle and he got slightly hampered, and he quickened up at the same time, but he'd given Constitution River about 5 length start. I went back and had a look at the race IQ times. When they both quickened up, he quickened up by almost 0.4 of a second faster than Constitution River. He's clearly got loads of talent, this horse. But I don't know whether they're saving him for the Jersey or they might go for this race or not. But I'm just keeping an eye out. Whenever he runs, Go Just Do It. He's a little bit under the radar because he's not quite sparkled properly yet.
Yeah.
So
operates well with cut, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Goes well with cut in the ground.
So that's one I'm going to be looking out for if he does run. The Irish 1,000 Guineas, I suppose, similar to Stad. You've got True Love. She's just the ultimate professional, and she was so impressive at Newmarket. again, any point in taking a run with maybe Precise or something else?
Yeah, True Love properly takes your eye in the parade ring. But she's built like a sprinter, and I thought everything went right for her at Newmarket in order to get that 1 mile trip. She'd obviously had a run coming into it as well, and I'd be taken on with Precise, to be honest. Obviously, a lot of the market is going to be made by who Ryan Moore decides to ride in this, but it wouldn't surprise me if he stays on Precise, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously, she had a hold up in her preparations for the Guineas at Newmarket. I thought she shaped as if she'd come on for the run, similar to the late Victoria, stepping forward from finishing 6th at Newmarket to winning this impressively. Precise finished 7th. I'm sure she's going to step forward for this. The form of her Fillies Mile win has been boosted since. She won by 3 lengths that day. The 2nd Venetian Lace and the 3rd Evolutionist finished 2nd and 3rd in that Guineas. The
Legacy
4th Legacy Link has then won the
Musadora.
Musadora as well. So the form of that Fillies Mile has worked out perfectly well. Sakanya's probably a danger for me. I was impressed with what she did in the Fred Darling. I know Tulane didn't run a huge race.
I thought she ran better than some people felt.
I'm still not convinced that Newmarket's her track, if I'm being honest.
I'd agree with that,
so I quite like Sakanya as a horse. But for me, I'm going for an Aidan O'Brien double, which works always so well in these Irish Guineas. So yeah, Stard and Precise in a double works out at about 3 to 1. And I would be confident that Precise will reverse form with True Love.
Okay. Are you as confident that True Love will win?
She's got 5 lengths to find with True Love, but I think if there's a bit of rain around, that won't hurt Precise either. I think she'll step forward quite markedly, and there was certainly no negatives from the Ballydoyle Open Day the other week that she was going to come here and then probably bounce into the Oaks. I'd probably have a tentative 16 to 1 voucher for the Oaks in the hope that she runs another big race here. She could still get beaten here, staying on strongly into 2nd, and that would advance her claims for Epsom.
When you were at Ballydoyle, did anyone mention whether Drop Dead Gorgeous would go for this race?
Nobody mentioned the Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Did you see her?
No.
I don't
think I saw her, but there was 50 in each lot.
She's a filly that I'm hugely interested in. She obviously won first time out and then she ran in that group race where she finished 3rd. Ryan got pocketed in. It was Black Caviar Gold, got on her outside and couldn't get out. She would have swallowed them up in another 3 or 4 strides. But if you look at her overall profile, physically she looks terrific, and then she's by Dubawi out of You're So Thrilling, and you just look at You're So Thrilling's progeny. They're all black type. Coolmore black type, Toy black type, Vatican City black type, Taj Mahal, Joan of Arc, Happily Group 1 winner, Marvellous Group 1 winner, Glen Eagles. They're all Group 1 winners, and the only one on that list, or the only one of these progenies that are black type that isn't by Galileo, is Drop Dead Gorgeous. So I'm sure she's talented. If she runs in the race, I don't think she's a massive outsider. I mean, I don't know how they're going to price her up if she did run in the race. But she's completely unexposed. She should be unbeaten going into the race, obviously. And she's got a family that is all about Group 1s. I'd love to see her go for the race. And you know what these Aidan O'Brien fillies are like. They just explode with their progression, no time at all. So she was just a horse that, again, I have no idea whether she'll run in the race or not, but I hope she does, because it'll make it interesting for those True Love, Precise, whoever else is going to go for it. The Tattersalls Gold Cup, meanwhile, Mini Hawk appears to be heading there after her comeback win, and clearly she's going to take all the beating. Of course, if Ombudsman lines up, we don't know. He might go there. He might go to Sandown next week. I would like to see him go here. Yeah. Also give him more time before the Prince of Wales is at Royal Ascot. If Mini Hawk and Ombudsman did line up against each other on, let's say, good ground.
Yeah. Ombudsman.
Ombudsman.
Too much speed.
I'd agree, yeah.
Well, she looked magnificent. So last week, she just real knockout as she walked past you. I mean, I know you could say that for 25
but
of
you're
them,
right.
but
She is a gorgeous.
But she was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really lovely model. And they're very, very enthusiastic about her this season. She's going to go to Ascot, isn't she? And this is a good stepping stone for her.
Ombudsman versus Mini Hawk, mile and a quarter, good ground.
And that's the thing. 10 furlongs, fast ground. I'm not sure she's got that turn of foot. I think she's a mile and a half horse and more of a grinder. I know she doesn't really do a lot in front and never wins by a huge amount of distance. She's clearly a really talented filly, but she's going to be a short price for everything she runs. She's going to be odds on for this. She's going to be a short price for the Prince of Wales Stakes as well. And I'd look at take her on until she steps back up to 1.5 miles later on in the season, to be honest. Ombudsman, you've got the question mark about how ready he's going to be.
The Prince of Wales is...
He was obviously beaten on his reappearance last year and then stepped up massively on his next start. I'd probably take a chance on Sadad. This is a race that UK trainers have a good record in. I know Roger Charlton obviously won it a few times, didn't he? Al Kazim twice and Decorated Knight. Lady Cecil won it with Noble Mission. William Haggis won it with Alon Kerr as well. And I've been impressed with what Sadad's done. If you look back at his novice form, that's worked out better than what it probably appeared at the time. He was third behind Opera Ballet, he was second behind Gethin. Both of those obviously been boosted since. He justified favouritism to win the London Gold Cup last season, followed up at Sandown in August. I liked his Group 3 victory in the Gordon Richards. Thought he was caught probably further back than was ideal that day as well, and thought he'd come on for that run. Yes, he's got £8 to find on ratings with Mini Hawk, but I think 10 furlongs is his trip. I think this is his ground, and he was about 7 to 1, I think, before betting's gone down with the next confirmation stage. But I'd prefer to back him each way in this race than back either the other two win only.
What about if it was sort of proper soft, if they did get a fair bit of rain? Almakam? Possible?
Yeah.
Obviously looks like Sheikh Ahmed's targeted the race, or connections of, have been very keen to have a runner in this race, which is ideal, and he's got to get started sometime, hasn't he, Almakam? Otherwise he's just going to be one of those horses that we never see.
Waiting for soft ground, yeah. Should we talk about a couple of the good sprints planned for the weekend? The Temple Stakes at Haydock on Saturday. Night Raider 4 to 1 to follow up the win at Newmarket. Asfura 9 to 2, Chagrin 9 to 2, Magira 8s and 9s American Affair. Who do you like here?
Obviously we're not privy to the draw. The draw's been quite a big player at Haydock in recent seasons. A higher draw, I think, has provided 2 of the last 3 winners. So that, with that proviso, I think last year's winner Magira is one I'd have on my shortlist. I thought she was impressive in this last year. She won in France before winning this last year, and she was beaten 5 or 6 lengths by Rijeka this time round, but she was very slowly away, which can be a bit of an issue with her. But she just looked a bit ring rusty. The other one I like is JM Jungle, who I thought ran really well behind Night Raider.
Yeah.
I don't think Newmarket would necessarily be his track, but I think back to Haydock, he was just it was a complete, resurgent last year. It was fantastic. Won at Goodwood, ran really well in some top level sprints. And I think with that run under his belt at Newmarket, back to Haydock, a track that he's already won well at. This time last year he was running behind American Affair every week, and we knew what that horse did in the 5 furlong sprint at Ascot. So yeah, I'd take those 2 against the field, and a couple of Haydock horses perhaps against Night Raider, who I thought got the absolutely ideal. I know he had to go and do it at Newmarket, but it was very speed favouring that week, and it certainly suited him the way that the conditions were riding.
Yeah. Even Rumstar, your old pal, couldn't reel Night Raider in at Newmarket on that day. You taking with Night Raider for this race, or are you looking elsewhere?
No, I liked what he did, but yeah, for me, I'm not sure that's going to translate to Haydock as well as it might do at other tracks. We've touched on Royal Ascot targets for a few of these, or in previous races. I think both Asfura and American Affair will have had a ring around Royal Ascot, as opposed to this. This is going to be another stepping stone from them, and the way that they both performed on their reappearance, I thought they'd step forward again for this run, progressing towards Royal Ascot. I like Jack Ajaro for this. I think he's just a complete transformed character so far this year. Previously, raced keenly in the rear, just didn't really race as he should as a sprinter, but so far this year, 2 starts under Jamie Spencer from the front and has made all and overcame a track and draw bias at York last time. The handicappers put him up £8 to a rating of 108, so on ratings he's not hugely out of this. We know that there's not too much difference between these high-end handicap sprinters and the group level ones. Has won impressively 2 3/4 lengths on both occasions so far this year. I'm not sure where Jamie is, but Eddie Greytrex has been jocked up for this, so I would hope that he's an intended runner for this, because he did smack of a horse that's well worth going up to group company off the back of that handicap victory at York last time.
Would it bother you if Jamie wasn't on board?
No.
Okay. I'm going to go
that's no slight on Eddie Greytrex, is it?
No.
But he's got such a good synergy with Jamie Spencer that would be a slight concern for me, because he obviously takes a little bit of knowing, doesn't he, Jack Ajaro?
But we have seen how his trainer can get these horses out of handicaps into winning
Steve's
Group 1.
point is absolutely right, isn't it? Because that's exactly what JM Jungle did last year.
Yeah.
Progressed from that handicap
American
into
Affair,
a group
you got
horse.
all of them.
Happens all the time.
But you've also got a horse that is a 3-time Group 1 winner in Europe, in Asfura. She's won the Nunthorpe, she's won the Abbey, she's won the King Charles, and she's had a prep run. So she was my play. Hopefully gets drawn in the right spot.
You want headgear back on for her, I imagine.
I'm not too. I actually thought she ran all right at Newmarket.
Right.
I mean, yes, if she had it on, fine. But I thought she ran quite nicely at Newmarket, and she genuinely looked like she got tired. She was on, see the left-hand part where Knight Raider was over on the far side. She travelled okay, travelled into the race fine, and then just emptied out in the last furlong. But I think back for a second start, she clearly will improve for that first.
I think they'll save the headgear for Ascot though.
I presume, but I think she might be. I think she might be good enough to win this.
Yeah.
Race, so she's the classiest horse in it. The Sandy Lane also takes place, and this is obviously for the 3-year-olds on the weekend. Venetian Sun coming back in trip from the Guineas, 2-1 division. Hopefully starts a bit better than he did at Ascot last time, 3-1. Koppel, who was ahead of him, 130. Russell's a 9-2. Rock on Thunder 8s, 5 ways 9s. Spicy Mark 10s, 25s bar. Fancy anything here?
I like Koppel. If you look back, Rohan won the Pavilion Stakes at Ascot before winning this race in 2021, and Koppel bids to do that same double. Thought he had good form last year. He won his debut at Leicester. He finished 3rd to Stade in the Coventry Stakes, beat Puerto Rico in the Richmond Stakes at Goodwood as well. So the form of his 2-year-old campaign is working out well. He was then 5th behind Venetian Sun in the morning as well. So he was up there with the proper 2-year-old sprinters last year. He got to within 3/4 of a length of Wise Approach in the Middle Park, reversed that form in the Pavilion Stakes at Ascot. I know Division was slowly away that day and caught the eye with the headway that he made late on, but I don't think I'd have Division a shorter price than Koppel for this, if I'm honest. And just purely based on that reason, I thought 100 to 30 was still relatively big for Koppel, who has trained on so far this season. He's running over the correct distance, and he'd be. I'd nearly have him favourite for this race if I was making this book.
Okay.
I'm with Division, but there's a big proviso that once horses start playing up at the stalls, that can be a real issue. I haven't seen it in him before. He has raced prominently. He has sort of raced slowly from the gates, but that was a rare one, that at Ascot, and for him to do as well as he did from that position. I know Ascot probably suits those horses that are ridden from the back, especially on the straight track there, but I thought it was a really good effort from him. He's already won at Haydock as well. He's a progressive 2-year-old. He'll do for me.
Spicy Mark for me.
Yeah.
Thought she ran a really good race in the Guineas.
I can't understand the price for this.
That's why I like her. 10-1. I think is quite generous. She tagged on to True Love, and the last couple of furlongs, obviously stamina became an issue, and they all ran away from her. But the ground she made up from virtually last place on her side of the track to tag on to True Love was quite impressive. So back to sprinting. She's obviously inconsistent. She's thrown in a few disappointing runs, but she's got loads of talent.
And it's not black and white, but she's only. Well, she was a place in front of Venetian Sun or a place behind. And Venetian Sun's 5-2. Is that on reputation rather than actual proven?
And obviously the form of her last win at Newmarket at the end of last season was boosted.
Yeah.
The runner-up that day obviously won the Nail Gwyn on her reappearance as well. I backed Spicy Mark at a massive price of 1,000 guineas, and for some of it I thought, go on, keep going.
Right,
and that was always going to be the concern was stamina, so I can completely see that.
Okay, and as we mentioned at the top of the show, there are lots of good races elsewhere, whether at Goodwood, Haydock, in Ireland with the Greenlands, etc. So where else would you like to throw some horses into the mix?
Well, I haven't got too many more to throw into the mix, but certainly in the Silver Bowl, which is a race that we're often drawn to, aren't we, at Haydock, because it's some bit like the London Gold Cup, but over a mile, isn't it? It's features loads of unexposed 3-year-olds, some of which have got lofty entries. And there was one just at a big price. I'm not sure that Bet365 are actually offering odds, but one firm was, and 25-1 for Pathine, Ed Dunlop's horse. Now Ed's had a few winners recently, going well. He has got an alternative.
Newmarket when we were there.
He has got an alternative entry, this lad, I think, at Goodwood, but I think he's more likely to go for this, so I'm told. Obviously, first run in a handicap, a couple of lengths behind a nice horse of George Bowie's in a 4-runner race at Goodwood, which doesn't look great when you first look at it. But the winner's got a St James's Palace entry, as is this lad, I think. He's going to be top weight here with mark of 103. I don't want to knock connections, but he could have probably been campaigned and hidden his light a little bit better and got in here of 90 if they'd have so wanted to. But I think he's a good horse. He just looked to take a huge heave at the furlong marker at Goodwood and then, blew out from that point on. But I think he's a really interesting horse. He ran in the Autumn Stakes, sort of got there a furlong out in a good race at Group 3 at Newmarket last year over 7, and just sort of blew up again. Probably just lack of conditioning, really. He won first time out on soft ground at Doncaster, got away with the ground at big price. I think he's always been trained like a good horse, and he drops into a handicap here. Big price, 25 to 1.
Well, that race is one of the ones I'm looking forward to most because there's loads of unexposed. A bit like the London Gold Cup. It's such a field of unexposed horses. There's Princeling in the race for potentially
Haggis,
for William Haggis, who would obviously he's got a handicap mark off the back of a scrambling enough win at Wetherby, and there's a horse potentially coming over from Ireland called Jamestown of David Monans, who should have probably won last time out. He was given a very tenderish ride, but he's still learning a little bit. He's still green, and he would have probably won another stride. But the horse that he beat, or the horse that just finished a short head in front of him, was Bobby McGee, who won a nice rated race in Ireland on the weekend. The horse back in third Latin America, I think Johnny Murtagh thinks quite a lot of. Yeah,
and that ran really well over a mile on Sunday, didn't it?
Yes.
Looking as if it wants to go back up in trip.
I think if he does come over, he'd be a horse that I'd be... Obviously, he hasn't had a winner at Haydock, but he's a horse that I'd be hugely interested in. Anything else that you want to...
No, that's me done.
Silver Bowl for you, Silver Bowl sort of for me. Steve, you normally have an extensive list.
Yeah, there's only 2.
You got a banger of you.
No, there's only 2, and they're both going to be odds on, but they're just more watching briefs, really.
Okay.
Darius is against Sozi in the Prix d'Ispahan this week. I was blown away by his reappearance. I didn't think he had that speed in him, and he was just unbelievable. So that's going to be a really good race. Saxon Street is favourite for the Cocked Hat at Goodwood. I was impressed with his reappearance win at Epsom. I thought he was a live Derby contender off the back of that. So not betting propositions, but 2 races to watch, and I'll keep my next one for my best bet of the weekend.
You might be able to answer this for me. So we take horses to the Lingfield Derby trial, don't we, just to see if they can run round Epsom okay?
Yeah.
Well, we have a perfectly good trial at Epsom that nobody seems to want to run in. I don't understand it.
And you get a free entry into the Derby if you win it as well, which is...
It just looks baffling.
You consider how much it costs to enter the Derby. Why not take it?
Yeah.
But with a good horse anyway, as opposed to some of the sort of second div horses.
Yes.
I mentioned Almarac. If he does run wherever, Salisbury or Ireland, watch out for him. William Haggis did say that he'll need his race because he said that the horse was pretty badly shaken up by the fall at York. But what talent he showed, and hopefully it's all still there. And another Haggis horse, Earthshot, in the height of fashion. She was hugely impressive last time out. So if she turns up in that race, is another one. And I will save the other one for last when we go to our best bets. Before we get to our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know about Bet365's position payout offer. Go to any horse race that offers the position payout market. Each selection will display a return for finishing first, second, third, or fourth, and so on. Place your bet, and the higher your selection finishes, the higher your payout. The T's and C's apply as per usual. Now it's time for our best bets of the weekend. Opening the batting on this is Sam Turner. Are you going for a steady, see off a few deliveries, or straight down the track?
Oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it? I think my best bet of the week is going to be Precise in the Irish Guineas. Okay. I think she'll step forward quite markedly from that Newmarket performance. It was a rush preparation. Still thought she showed tons of ability through the race. She won the Fillies Mile, a race that's working out exceptionally well. I think that she'll bounce out of this and probably still take in the Oaks. So I think the 16 to 1 for the Oaks is probably a voucher worth having. Speculative, but definitely a voucher worth having. But I think she'll step up quite markedly on what she achieved at Newmarket. She got 5 lengths to find, and I think she was probably 75% fit. So she'll do for me. She's a Moy Glare winner already. She handles the track and she stays well. So Precise in the Irish Guineas.
Precise in the Irish Guineas for Sam. Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to a handicap, the 240 at York, a 5 furlong handicap. I like Alvin for George Scott, who has Darragh Keenan jocked up for the ride. Unexposed over this 5 furlong trip. Won at Bath on his penultimate start off a mark of 81. I thought he was unlucky not to win at Chester last time. He was drawn in stalled 11. He was slowly away. He was caught back further than ideal. And he finished 4th, beating only a length and a half that day. It was just one of those Chester nightmare runs. He's only been raised £1 for that. And he's currently 8-1 for that race. So I thought he could have been in this off a £6-7 higher mark if he'd got a better start that day. So Alvin for me in the 240 at York at 8-1.
Okay. And I am going for Nakib in the Foundation Stakes at Goodwood. He's only run twice at Goodwood over a mile and a quarter. The first time was when he was second to Westridge in the handicap at the Glorious Goodwood meeting. And the other time, again, over a mile and a quarter, he won the listed Foundation Stakes, beating Ancient Wisdom. He's had a run this season. It was over a mile, way too short for him. But it would hopefully have taken the freshness out of him because he can be keen. He was towards the head of affairs, ended up finishing behind Jonquil. I presume that was very much a prep for going back to Goodwood, where he's got that good record in those 2 runs. So he's back at Goodwood, back over a mile and a quarter. And in the Foundation Stakes, I don't think he'll be far away. So Nakib for me at Goodwood, Alvin for Steve at York, and Precise at the Curragh in the Irish Guineas for Sam. Are you out and about this week, racing?
No, I don't think I am this week. I should be watching it on the box.
Lovely. I thought you were going to Goodwood on Friday.
Oh yeah, well, I'm there Friday, but I didn't count that as the weekend. But sorry, I was looking towards the weekend. But yeah, no, I shall be roasting Bright Red Face at Goodwood on Friday afternoon.
Panama hat to the...
Tune in.
Panama hat's ready for Sam.
Look like a Swan Vesta by about 5 o'clock.
What about you, Steve?
We're together in the studio at Racing TV tomorrow.
Yep.
I'll probably just be enjoying the sun at the weekend. Might have to... Well, I'm battling to get myself back in the cricket team.
Really?
What's happened here?
Well, they keep winning. They keep winning games without. I was unavailable for the first game of the season. We've won the first 5, so I can't get back in.
Oh dear.
But we did put on 106 partnership for our first wicket on Sunday.
Right.
That I contributed 27 to.
Okay.
Right.
So
27 off. Dom Sibley, were you?
I was just taking the ones and letting the other opener tee off. So
I do quite enjoy that role.
It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, because you just keep batting, don't you? It's lovely.
Exactly. Yeah. So I should be playing cricket and come in probably a bit more tan next weekend.
Excellent. Well, I miss those days of playing cricket. It's way past my skills.
So do my knees, actually.
Okay, lovely to see you again on the show, Sam and Steve. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. As always, if you've liked what you've heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. Looking forward to all those comments about the number of mentions that we give to whoever on the show. We're back next week to have a look at Haydock and York in the company of Tanya Stevenson. But for now, from Steve, Sam and myself, bye-bye.